In today's episode, I'm welcoming friend, prior client, and mental health advocate Brittany Snow, along with her co-founder of September Letters, Jaspre Guest, to talk about their new book, September Letters. Brittany is a passionate, outspoken advocate for mental health awareness and well-being. She is the co-founder of the nonprofit movement Love is Louder with the Jed Foundation and MTV, and she has written and directed and produced the Parachute movie about mental health and addiction that will be released in 2023. Jaspre Guest created her career by shunning traditional norms. Known as the Fixer, she is the founder of the boutique branding and PR agency Noise 784. She's led initiatives for a range of nonprofits, including It Gets Better, Global Citizen, the International Rescue Committee, Love is Louder, and the ASPCA. Together, they started September Letters, and their new book is a welcoming, embracing resource for anyone seeking to feel more connected with themselves and with others. I'm so excited to welcome them both so you can learn more about this movement and their new book. Britt and Jaspre, I have waited so long to do this podcast with you. I feel like we have had to reschedule, and I am so glad I'm getting this in before I go out on maternity leave because, first of all, your message and September Letters in general, you created this company in 2020, but now it is a book, and I'm so excited for the world to get their hands on it. I'm so excited for you guys to tell your story. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. Obviously, I'm a big fan of you, and personally and professionally. So yes, we've been waiting to be on this podcast for a really long time. I've been waiting to be on this podcast ever since I heard it. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, you have such an important message. And I think I'm most curious for our audience to get to know how you guys became friends and decided to start September Letters.
Jaspre and I have known each other for a really long time. We actually met at a party that I was hosting sort of for this company, and I'm really shy and bad at hosting parties, and Jaspre was gracious enough to stand by me and make sure that I felt comfortable, even though I was supposed to be DJing the party and I didn't know how to DJ. So she walked over to me and got me champagne and just sort of made me feel comfortable. And then we sort of hit it off talking about different things and ended up going to another restaurant later that night and just became like kindred spirits in terms of what we both aligned on in terms of like health and wellness and metaphysical things and all sorts of things. And then she actually became the publicist for my charity that I started in 2010 called Love is Louder. And we got really close doing that. And then in New York, when I was living there, I had this idea that I kind of softly pitched to her or told her about September Letters and what I wanted to do with this idea about communication and feeling like your story is full circle and that everyone is connected in some way. And she said to me, well, you have to do something about that. And I thought, well, I'm not really going to do anything about it. I don't even know the first thing to do. And she said, I'll help you. So then it sort of kicked off because she's sort of one of those people that can take an idea and actually make it happen. And I just think of things and never think that it will come true. So it's a really good team effort that we have. And now we're really close friends.
It's really so amazing when I see friendships, especially female friendships, where they push one another. Like you believe in each other and the mission that you're on. And for you, Jaspre, to see Britt's idea as concrete and something that needed to happen. From your standpoint, when Brittany was talking about September Letters, what did you envision for it? And why were you so inspired to make it a reality?
I think there's such a benefit of having a long-term friendship and really knowing someone professionally and personally. And like Brittany said, we met at this party and then I started repping Love is Louder and then we became friends and I knew her story so well. And I really love and respect her so much, especially what she does within the mental health space. And I don't know, we were at this bar talking about this idea. Clearly bars are like a theme with us. But I am one of those people that their brain works a little bit differently. It's what I do professionally. I take ideas and I make them happen. And it's like one of my things of, anyone can do anything. If you have an idea, just go make it happen. And I've been really respectful of her vision and dream. And Brittany has very clear understanding of what she wanted. And so it was really just taking what she wanted to do and making it happen. And I saw it. My brain sees the end and then it sees the path to get to the end. And it was a very clear cut idea. And this was all before, 2020 happened. A lot of people feel like this is a response to the pandemic, and it wasn't. But I love the idea of helping yourself by writing a letter, and then in turn that actually helping someone else and closing this loop and making it feel full circle. It felt really achievable. It felt like such a simple idea and an easy way to help someone, and it felt inclusive, and I just thought we have to do it. And I think what you said is we're a really good partnership. We do push each other. And so it's kind of like, hey, here's what we can do. And then she's got very clear thoughts of how to execute it and bring it to the next level. So obviously the universe wanted us to be together. I mean, we clearly have had a very long relationship, and September Letters in a way magically happened. We definitely helped push each other, but it was really exciting to think back to that moment.
It's interesting because it was perfect timing. I don't think you could have planned for that and what everyone went through in 2020 after it was, you had this idea prior, and to have it launched and available to people, it's putting major goodness out into the world. So for you, Britt, when you thought about September Letters and you thought about people writing letters, what did you envision, and how were you personally impacted by people's stories?
Yeah, I think, and this was before the pandemic, but I always had this idea that you automatically feel closer to someone when you have that aha moment where something in your life is resonating with something that happened in someone else's life. You feel automatically connected to that person and not so alone, and able to have resilience inside your struggle because you know that there is community there. And that really helped me when I was going through a lot of difficult times. Just knowing that someone else had paved a way in any sort of way, whether it be a struggle or not. And so I always kind of thought that maybe September Letters was going to be this connective tissue to some people, and hopefully the more we share about our mental health, the more people feel connected and not so alone. I think there's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to the mental health community and making it so widespread and available for people to talk about and not feel ashamed. So these stories, once they started coming in, once we sort of launched the website, it was just beautiful how open people were and honest and willing to share what they had been through. And also what I think was the most beautiful part about it was the hope that always was at the end of the letter. I was kind of under the impression that there would be a bunch of stories talking about how bad people's life was, and this is all the stuff that I've been through. But I do have to say, probably about almost 90% of the letters had some sort of follow through at the end, knowing that there was hope at the end of the tunnel, and knowing that they could get through. And I think that component really spoke to me, that I think as human beings, we just have this innate ability to know that there is a way through. And I think that was something really cool that I didn't necessarily know was going to happen.
I mean, just the resilience that human beings have, even through the hardest of days and the biggest struggles in their life. I mean, you really do feel connected to people's, just through their struggles and through their resilience. It's the most inspiring thing. I think what I've always been impressed with you, Britt, is that you do make it a point to share your personal mental health struggles, and with depression and anxiety and eating disorder when you were a teen. Can you talk a little bit about why and when you started to feel comfortable sharing that side of yourself and letting people in?
Yeah, I think, to be completely honest with, and I'll say this to you, Kelly, and your listeners, I don't ever really feel 100% comfortable talking about it. I think because there's a part of me that still subscribes to the belief that there's this sort of stigma, and I'm the first one to admit that it's a struggle for me because I'm fighting against it. But there is a little bit of a um like a feeling that I'm sharing my story, and it's for some sort of reason, like, and it's not an altruistic one. It's one because I want to, say something or get something. And I think a lot of people think that mental health stories are maybe even coming from a place of vanity or attention, and that's not necessarily true at all. But I think that it's always a little hard for me to share my story because I think when I initially came out with my story when I was 21, I was not ready to share it. I thought I was doing something good by opening up about something that I was currently sort of going through, and I was met with a lot of judgment. And I also at the time didn't really think that it was going to be a big deal. I was doing it for a website for a charity, and I, in my naive head, thought it would just stay on the website. I don't know what I was thinking, but it went other places, let's just say. And it was this sort of salacious view of what I was trying to do, which I thought was something that I could control the narrative of like, this is what I went through and I'm sharing my story to help people. But I think people took it in a different way. And so that was really hard for me. And I kind of closed up about it for a really long time, and then started to heal myself and get better. And through that, realized, especially when I had a bunch of, recovery and have done a lot of work on myself, how important it is to share my story and for everyone to share their story, not just because I'm an actor, but I think everyone being vocal and honest about things that they've been through, it takes away that salacious nature of it. It takes away the stigma, and it also takes away the fact that like anyone is different from anyone else. We're all going through something, whether it be a mental health thing or a physical thing or grief or just confusion. And I think the more that we share, the more we realize that we can all, as a community, help each other. So yeah, I still am trying to talk about it in a more open way, but I force myself because I know that if I'm going to talk the talk, I need to walk the walk. Like I can't say, oh, everyone should share their story and then me not share mine.
Yeah, it is. It puts you in a place of vulnerability where you can be judged, and unfortunately, like, especially for an actor like yourself, like you don't really get to control a lot of your narrative, and there are a lot of stories told about people in Hollywood where you're like, no, like I want to tell my own story. I was telling my own story for this website, and then it kind of was
Mm-hmm.
blown out of proportion or taken in a different way. And the reality is, most of us are just living our life and also finding ourselves on social media where it's just a highlight reel. And it's almost like the antithesis of being vulnerable about struggles, because a lot of the times
Yeah.
what you're seeing people share is just like, I'm on vacation, this is so great, my life.
Right.
And that can be like really alienating for people. So for you to build this brand and then to come out with your new book, September Letters, it's sharing those stories of resilience, is sharing those struggles, and that people really make it out on the other. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel. And that can be so healing for people to hear your story, to know that you have struggles, even though you've had this, great career and been successful in an industry where a lot of people want to be a part of it or have success in it. So it's beautiful to see. And I'm really thankful for your vulnerability. And I know a lot of other people are as well.
Thank you. that means a lot, because even as you were saying that, the negative voice in my head is like, well, I'm not really like that. And you're not really like, who cares about you? All that sort of stuff. But I think that everybody's story matters, not just because anybody is, what they do for a living. And I think you're right. I think social media throughout the years has really done a disservice to the mental health community and for people going through anything with their mental health, because there isn't vulnerability. There isn't sort of that checks and balances of, yeah, you might look this way, but also you might be having the worst day with yourself or your eating or your body. And I think it's really damaging in a lot of ways. And I'm just as victim to it as well. I, even this morning, had something on social media where I saw something and was just instantly in a bad mood. And I had to put on a podcast and I had to like retrain my brain to be like, this isn't real. Blast them with love, pray for them, and then just like let that go, because you have no idea what's really going on. And I think that sort of self-talk is really due to my mental health journey and the work that I've done on myself, because it's hard to like open up your phone and constantly have to recalibrate your brain.
Yeah, it is. It's all about boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaspre, for you, have you had any personal mental health journey or things that you've dealt with in your life that inspired you to rally behind Britt's idea for September letters?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone on this planet has some sort of mental health journey, especially after going through what we all have gone through collectively. But before that, I had a lot of physical illnesses as a kid. And my September letter really centers around that, and how constant surgeries and illnesses created anxiety and panic attacks, and not really actually understanding that I had those things, and then figuring out what the tools could be to help those situations. And I think that's one thing that we really tried to do in the book was, Brittany and I both have had different mental health journeys, just like everyone else on the planet. And we really wanted to talk to experts that could help us give insight into things that maybe we didn't know. So in a way, it felt like we went to like a university for a few, 6 months to a year, just interviewing these incredible people that actually gave us the time when we asked them. And everyone from, David Kessler, who is an incredible grief, expert, to Bob Roth, who does transcendental meditation. We kind of just made a wish list of people that was like, I wish I could ask this person to help me, and maybe they'll talk to us and give us really tangible insight. And that was the goal in the book too, is when you want help or when you need help, I don't really know where you start, and the internet is an incredible place, but it is also a completely overwhelming menu. It's like that diner where the menu is like 80 pages and you're just like, I don't understand what I even want to order. And that's what I think we try to do with these experts. And they gave us just really tangible, inclusive advice, because as we all know, it's really expensive for mental health, and it's also really difficult to navigate where to start, and so my journey was very different than Brittany's journey, which is different than someone else's journey. But we've also gotten a lot of letters saying, hey, I relate to that, I went through that actually helped me to feel like I was not alone. Because when I was a kid growing up, I felt very alone in the journey that I was having. I felt very strange. I was constantly sick and I had to navigate things a little differently. I had a lot of ear surgeries. So, if you wanted to go to the swimming pool and there was like a swimming birthday party, like I was not attending that, because if someone pushed me into the pool, I could lose my hearing. It's just like really dramatic things that when you're 6, 7, 8, 12, 15, 17, is really hard to feel camaraderie within that. And so I think, I've always been really inspired by Brittany. Brittany inspires a lot of people, and the selflessness and telling her story, especially like how she just said, she's still going through it. I think we all are still going through it, whatever that may be. But that's really the inspirational part. And that's really what I think inspired us when we sat down to write this book. How can we really help people? Because what would have helped us in that time of our lives?
Well, you did gather a collective of the best in the mental health space. When you look at the the simple, tangible tools that were given, what were each of your favorites?
I think, I think there was this one part of the book that was like, what did she call it? She called it like
I knew you were gonna say this.
I love because I think it actually really, really helps me. I had to do it this morning to do like a hype list for yourself and I think what's really interesting about having an eating disorder background or an anxiety and depression background and things like that is that you're I have over 14 years of recovery from my eating disorder, but like the mental headspace that you are in is always kind of with you. You just have more tangible tools on how to not even combat it, but just how to like navigate your brain, I think. And I think that because of, being a woman, being in this profession, blah, 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 there's this sort of feeling that you have to compare yourself or start, being, you have to like sell yourself in some way. Every time I have to like go into a meeting for my next movie or something like that, I have to sell myself. And it's really hard sometimes to have that sort of negative self-talk that's built into my brain. So I do this thing called a hype list, which is sometimes I just kind of list out things that I know that I have that are just mine and are there that are pretty cool, and it seems really hard to do because I don't like doing that for myself. It seems really self-serving and self-seeking, but I think it's really important to walk into a place and know that these are things that were given to you by the universe and that you just have, and that no one can take them away from you either because you don't even know how you got them. And you have those and they're pretty cool. And then you hype yourself up. It really works.
I love that because I think that there are people that are wired to do that and remember all of their gifts and their talents and their, the things, their own hype list. And I like, it kind of reminds me of the meme where like the woman's looking in the mirror in a bathing suit and she's like, oh, it's like a million things that she would change. And then there's like, a dad bod guy looking at the mirror and he's like, yeah, and he's like, definitely like dad bod,
Yeah.
and the woman is tearing herself apart and like for every reason. And then the guy's just like, yeah, I still got it, and it's like,
Yeah.
what is it about us as women, and it's definitely from the culture and expectations that we have from the world to, I don't want to say be perfect or like whatever, but we're a lot harder on ourselves in every aspect. And so it's important to have that hype list just to neutralize some of the negativity,
and everybody has one that's so different than anyone else. And that's what's so cool about us as humans is that there's something that we all have that's really interesting and special. And so I think, I think it's important to know that like your soul and who you are as a person is not something that someone can take away from you just by looking at the mirror or going into a meeting or something like that. So I think it's really important to hype yourself up. And that was a cool, thing to read about. And like there's lots of little tips in here with lots of things about writing things down and taking the self-care to do grateful lists and hype lists and writing things down to make sure that you take the time for yourself to actually realize these things and make sure that you're tuning in to something that's true to you.
That's good stuff. Jaspre, was there an expert or that you interviewed?
There's so many. I mean,
inspired by?
We got to interview Bob Roth for Transcendental Meditation. I do TM, and that was just the coolest. I was like fangirling over that interview because he's just like, I don't know, there's no one cooler than Bob Roth. So TM was really cool. We also interviewed a joy strategist. Her name is Grace Harry, and she recommends joy snacks. So just like you have to have snacks throughout the day so that you don't get angry or hangry or your blood drops or whatever. It's just about preparing different moments, like a playlist, looking in the mirror. And really, truly, when I look at the book holistically, all of these little gems of wisdom are really about being prepared.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we really, like Britt and I keep saying, we really hope that this book becomes a tool in someone's toolkit so that they can go to it and use.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from my personal experience, it's really important to stock your toolkit with things that you can go to. Because like what Brittany said is like when you're in crisis or something happens, you open Instagram and it makes your brain turn left. That's really when you need one of these things, and you can't start figuring out what to do then. You need to be prepared with, okay, my hype list or my joy snack or my TM, let me get one of those tools out. And that's what I think our biggest wish is for this book, is just to help it be someone's tool so they can go to it when they're feeling something to help navigate them through that.
No, it's very much reminds me of just even working with clients for nutrition. It's like, all right, you had something that dysregulated your blood sugar. What can we do to like make you feel better and feel more balanced, instead of saying like, oh, I just, I messed up my whole day, or it's over, I'm throwing in the towel, or feeling really bad and shameful and guilty, instead of just saying like, okay, what can I do to move forward and move through it? And so when it comes to mental health, these little joy snacks and hype lists, they're going to make a big difference. So I'm curious for your experience with TM, Jaspre. How long have you been practicing, and how do you feel like it's influenced your life?
I started practicing, I think in like it's been a little bit of a while now, 2016, 2017.
Okay.
And I was actually very anti-meditation, which is if you know me, this is actually kind of shocking because I'm very into like metaphysical, into woo-woo, the whole thing. I was like, I do not need meditation. I am perfectly like a capable human. The idea of it just really, I was very anti. And Britt and I have a shared love of hypnotherapy. And I love my hypnotherapist, and I listen to tapes and the whole thing. But meditation was just something that I was really, really anti. And it was when my grandfather was actually passing away that I realized, I really think I need something to help me get through this like moment. And so I pulled my mom into doing TM, and we went to like I don't know what you call that, like an open seminar. And I heard the whole speech, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I don't know if this has been everyone's experience, but they do like a 4-day ceremony at the one that I went to. Like you bring flowers, you get your mantra. I mean, it's like a whole thing. And so I went through it, and in the beginning it was really hard, but actually and I'm definitely not good at the second meditation. For everyone listening that doesn't know about transcendental meditation, it's 2 20-minute sessions a day. I don't really get to that second meditation. I do the morning, but the second one is really hard for me to accomplish. But my resilience and my reaction to stress dramatically started to shift as I continued doing TM. And obviously, like anything in the world, if you keep doing it, it becomes easier. So as months went on, it became easier and easier and easier, and something that I felt more comfortable. And actually, they say you feel refreshed, which is like, I was like, this is impossible. This doesn't make sense. And I can see all the brain chemistry and the science behind it, but it actually changed the way I reacted to stressful things. And it was kind of shocking that it really transformed my life, and to the point where I continue to do it. And in the book, we talk about this, but Bob Roth did these worldwide meditations on Zoom. I don't know if you saw this, but he would do 2 20-minute sessions. And so I started joining in the morning session, and it just felt really cool to know you were one of many, many people tuning in and listening to the man who like trained with all these incredible people, had gone through the whole thing. And he himself was like, I was the last person that was going to be someone that was going to meditate. Like I was like a young boy when this started. So TM, I was really resilient to, and it really deeply transformed my life. And I feel like I've become another classic case study, because this is all you ever hear is people who are like very resistant and then like, whoa, it changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of transformative for me.
Yeah, well, when you talk about having resilience to stress and sort of like a longer fuse for life's struggles, like that is a gift that allows you to just compartmentalize what's happening in your world and not be so emotionally affected by it. And it takes you, you know, for some people who do 2 a day, 40 minutes, but 20 minutes a day. I feel like that's where people can really get the benefit. I'm very much was like you. I was a breath work, like vinyasa flow yoga person, played soccer, hit training, stuff like that. And then after a couple of kids and realizing like I can't always dedicate like 90 minutes of a yoga class in a day, it just like isn't fitting in, and I needed something. And the end of last year, like right after Thanksgiving, I started doing like
Oh, wow.
six phase meditation, and it totally changed everything for me. And it's 18 minutes a day, like right when I wake up. But it's almost like it gives me what I would get out of yoga. I mean, I'm missing the physical aspect, but it's like amazing for my ability to navigate like toddler tantrums and like schedules moving around and a big long work day, or, you know, anything like that. So your story resonates with me big time, because I was like, just sit there and like, I'm just going to list out my to-do list. It's going to make me anxious. Like meditation felt like the place where I would just be thinking about all the things I needed to do and not actually doing them. But I moved over the hump of that, and it's been total game changer. So
You guys might convert me. I for the other listeners that are like, I don't do meditation, that's me. And I really want to. So I want to be on the side that you guys are on, because I do know it would benefit me a lot. But my heart rate really goes up when I sit there in silence.
That was
and I
me,
think
though.
that's the reason.
This was totally me. And I will say the reason why I became a lover of TM is they are big on there's no wrong way to do it. So like if your brain is going through your laundry list, that's okay. Like they're okay with everything. So I thought I kind of love that they're not making me do it a certain way. It's just the way you do it. But my heart rate would go into like a rapid
Yeah.
because it like the idea of meditation was like the worst. It was like the worst. But I think it's worth trying.
Well, there's this really great quote that I saw the other day where this guy said, you know, show me the ways that you're not becoming still, and I'll show you the patterns that keep repeating in your life. And I was like, oh, that one hits right here, because being still is really hard for me. I mean, even the stillness that comes with making a decision and not reacting to something, and instinctually just going into okay, I can solve this, or this is how this feels, or let's, you know, fix this, or I can be better, or whatever it is. Just taking that moment of just being and not reacting is, I know that's where the meditation comes in. And I think it's so, because I think it's stillness in general is just really the thing that I think as a society we're really having a huge problem with. So we're not really just sitting there, we're just pulling out our phones, or, you know, going to the next thing. And so
that is a huge thing.
I think meditation is sort of this macro thing that might solve a lot of problems. So I know.
Well, I mean, I worry, I sound like my mom. I worry about it, the younger generations. I worry about like our kids. Because when I think about being bored, and boredom being like this gateway to creativity and imagination and having times in my childhood where it was just like, I was in my backyard. My mom was just like, yep, see you later, like have fun, play. And the younger generations who do have access to phones and social media and all these things, it's just like there is no downtime, there's no boredom time, there's no stillness, there's no silence, there's no I want to say like it working through their feelings and thoughts, because there's no time to even sit with how they feel. And even like, Chris and I will take our kids to a restaurant and there'll be teenagers at a table next to us, wherever we are or whatever. And they're not talking half the time. They're like on their phones, all sitting around the table. And I worry about the connection. Yes, we're so connected, but everyone's so alienated, and community and stories and feelings and talking about your feelings. I mean, you guys are sharing this every single day through September letters, but like, that's how we really feel connected, not sitting there and viewing each other's life without talking about how we're feeling. So, yeah, meditation may be what helps you in your stillness, but I still think you have a major advantage over the kids nowadays who are like constantly connected, you think about that, you're like, how do you make time and space for them to have phone-free fun, like to have conversations without their phones out, to like think about, like, to make space for them to think about how they feel. Like, I think that's a major responsibility for parents. I feel that burden, not a burden, but like that responsibility to check in with my kids and have them vocalize like how they're feeling, not just push them through a situation and tell them they're okay, but like to really ask those questions. And I think there was a generation before us that didn't really want to know, my dad's parents didn't want to know like how he was feeling. They just wanted to be like, did you go to school? Did you go to baseball? Did you get good grades? Okay, but like the end, And so we're straddling these like two different worlds almost that butt together. And I think social media just makes it, or just the connection of the phone makes it harder to get in touch with how we feel and to think about it.
Yeah, it's funny because when I said I was putting on a podcast this morning, I put on my favorite like little snippet, but it was Glennon Doyle talking about easy buttons and how as a society, instead of just feeling like white hot loneliness of just sitting with your problems or whatever it is and feeling your feelings, you have your phone, you have food, you have shopping, you have all these things that are so readily available. And as parents, she was saying it's so hard to be able to tell your kids like, no, it's okay to just feel your pain and to feel whatever you're feeling and whatever emotion is coming up for you, and to not have to go someplace else to not feel it. And as a parent, I'm sure you want to protect your kid from that, but it's actually building that resilience in them by just having them sit with the feelings that they're feeling. And I think that that's something that we don't do enough. And I actually deal with it in the movie that I wrote and that I directed, Parachute. I called it Parachute because it's another word for easy buttons. We're just always trying to lessen the fall of something. But I think to bring it back to the book, like this is just a one-stop shop of like a bunch of people that are just feeling their feelings and not having to utilize anything by like parachuting or taking an easy button or something like that. You're just really saying like, this is what I'm going through and I'm going to feel it. And I'm also going to share it. And I'm sure you've gone through it too. And I think that's hopefully the antithesis of what's going on right now, which is so many people just trying to solve it by being busy or phones or things like that. I mean, we can hope. That's what we're trying.
No, it is exactly what you're doing. And I feel like, in looking through and reading your book, September Letters, you allow people to, not only do you have the experts, but you allow people to write their story or, to share their story. How did you guys choose? I mean, I'm sure you had a lot to choose from, but how did you choose some of the stories that were told in the book? And what were you thinking when you were evaluating like what you wanted to go in?
I mean, I think we started, I mean, writing this book took like 2.5 years, and I think one of the things that I learned from Britt, because I'm in a very like, yeah, let's make it happen. Let's do it, was like the power of no. And when something felt wrong, she'd be like, no. And I would be like, she's right. And like reevaluating. And so it took us a really long time to be like, what is the foundation of this book? And we finally landed on that each chapter was an emotion. And that felt like really good for us. And so, you have joy and happiness, grief and loss, community. And that was really when we started to look at like, we had a few hundred letters that we were trying to figure out where can we place. And we really distilled it down to emotion, because one of our deepest desires was that you could read the book from front to back or back to front, however you read books. Or you could just open the book and you would be fine. Or if you were feeling a particular emotion, you could go to that chapter and kind of guide through that to how you're feeling. And that was really the way that we decided to start aggregating and selecting these letters and fitting them into like a story, was by the emotion.
And then we also realized, which was very cool, through collecting all these stories, that there was so much overlap with what people were saying and feeling, even though they were going through a different emotion. And that their stories, one person in our book has a really bad stutter, but the way that they were talking about it was very, very similar to someone who was going through anxiety, who was very similar to someone who was going through grief, which was very similar to and it sort of we realized through all these different stories and letters that people were writing that we all are going through the same sort of emotion, even though you might think that they're in different chapters of your life. We're all connected and going through sort of the same feelings.
It's nice that you broke it up that way, because I feel like for most people, whenever you're scratching the surface of an emotion and trying to hold it down or push it down, being able to connect with other people in that state almost allows for you to go even deeper. It's I kind of think about it back the way music can inspire people. Like if you have an emo song or like something that's like taking you to this deeper level and you're feeling those feelings, and then you can blast that song and you allow yourself to like really feel what you're feeling, almost like drowning out your own emotions with the volume of the music, but just to be able to feel it in that space. And so breaking it up the way you did, I thought was pretty brilliant, because if you are feeling grief and loss and you just want to dip into that and read other people's stories of that, whether you're feeling more emotional because of their story or their stories allowing you to access that deeper part of yourself to process and heal, it's a really beautiful way to share stories and allow for people to feel their feelings so that they can heal. So when you look at like the healing modalities and how you personally healed, Britt, like, and it's always a process, right? What are the best tools that you have found to move through mental health crises like depression and anxiety, for you personally?
I think, I think for me, I do have a toolbox of things now. I do have, and some of those being community hypnotherapy, going outside, music, therapy, and I think the toolbox is different for everybody. I think it kind of ranges from, person to person. I don't think anyone has the same toolbox. I remember a few years ago, I wanted to put you in my toolbox. I like found you on Instagram and I was like, I need a nutritionist. And I think it's being proactive with knowing what you need and knowing that you need, sometimes, you need a bunch of different modalities, But I also think that there's so many things that you can do that don't cost any money or don't, have to be so difficult. They can be as simple as opening up, a September letters, and reading a letter, calling a friend. I will have to say, the past year has been really tricky for me, and I don't think I would have gotten through it without friends and reaching out to them and just saying, I don't need you to give me advice. I don't need you to do anything. I just need to be on the phone with somebody so I just don't feel alone. And gratefully, my friends would just sit on the phone with me and we would watch movies or we would talk about nothing. And I think just having that sort of like connection was the hug that I needed to just get through the moment, to feel the feelings, to get to the other side. And I think that's been hugely important in my mental health journey is finding people who just want to be there and I can be there for them as well. And Jaspre is definitely one of those people. I mean, more than not, there's been so many times that I've called her and she's kind of walked me through and given me a hype list and gotten me to the other side of things. And I think that's been huge. But yeah, community has been a huge part of my journey in so many different facets.
I think you said something really important, is that you'd reach out to those people, you'd ask for help, you'd pick up the phone and call them. And I think for a lot of people in turmoil or like moving through a big change in their life, it's the asking for help that can be really difficult for people, and they can feel alienated. That is that something that you learned through working with a therapist or support to like know to reach out, or has that just been something you've always done along the way?
It's really difficult for me to reach out because I definitely feel like a burden, or I feel like I'm telling the same story and there's nothing that they can do. And I know that there's nothing they can do to fix it. And I think that's the difference between asking for help with someone wanting them to have some sort of answer, and then knowing that sometimes you just don't need an answer, you just need connection. And I think on the other side is being that friend that's helping. You don't necessarily need to fix it and you don't necessarily need to make it better. I think the healing is just being there, but it is definitely a practice. And I will have to say I've gotten a lot of my friends flowers in the past couple of years, just being like, thank you for being there. Because it is hard. It's hard to know that you're not being a burden or annoying or needing something from anyone. And I think that that's what true friendship is knowing that you would do the same for them, and you will when they go through something hard.
Yeah, we all have our seasons. It's really good that you know to reach out and can do it, and that your friends know that you might not want advice in that moment, but just an ear.
There was this great thing that I learned a couple years ago about receiving, and as women we really, really struggle with that in terms of we want to do something, we want to get somewhere, we want to carry our own groceries to the car. Like that's what my mom was, like a strong woman, and how it's so hard to be able to receive help, to receive any sort of, even taking the groceries to the car. I remember as an exercise, my therapist was like, just have them take your groceries to the car. And I was like, no, I will take them myself. I can carry them. And she was like, but it might be really hard to carry all the bags. Like just have someone help you. And I think that's really difficult as women to be able to do in practice. But I do think that as human beings, we're all giving and receiving all the time. And it's so important to be able to take that space for yourself and just receive for once. And then you'll give it back because you need the energy of receiving in order to give anything back.
Yes, you do. 100%. So for anyone who's tuning into this podcast and picking up your book, September Letters, what do you hope that they learn and take away. I know you, Jaspre, you said you hope it's their toolbox. It becomes part of their toolbox, something they can pull from the shelf and use. What do you want? Like, what do you want to leave? What do you want? What stamp do you want to leave on this earth with this book and this business that you think will inspire people to take care of themselves holistically through their mental health journey?
I mean, for me, I think it's to know that we are all connected and you're not alone going through whatever you're going through. As a simple example that doesn't get too personal, I lost my dog a couple years ago, and it was so painful. But weirdly enough, Jaspre had just lost her dog a couple months before. And the benefit of knowing that we had both had the same feelings and going through the same things and how hard it was, having that sort of connection of knowing that you've already been through this. Tell me what you were feeling, not necessarily any advice, but just knowing that you're already through it was hugely beneficial in getting me through the pain of it. And I think that's what this book is doing, is giving you some sort of roadmap of knowing that there's other humans that have gone through what you are going through, no matter how crazy you think it is. And I think that is creating the connection that we need right now.
I mean, I think, also the book is dedicated to our dogs who passed, because it was during this process, and I called Brittany and I was like, I know what we should do. And she was like, that's it. And we never spoke about it again. It was like, the book is dedicated to Billy and Papaya. And that was really important to us. But, for me, I think obviously, and I keep saying this, I want it to be a tool for people. And I want it to also be that there's no wrong way to do something. There's no wrong way for you to go through your own experience, and there's no wrong way to start to heal and move to the other side. And hopefully the book is like the helpful first step for someone who is a little bit lost and a little bit overwhelmed in a sea of content, and everyone who's an expert who's not an expert on social media and being misguided. This is really a collection of true experts with very achievable ideas that are not overwhelming, and a group of people that is the biggest community of support I've ever seen. The fact that we reached out to all these people and immediately got, yeah, sure, let's talk. And they all spoke to us like so selflessly. And then everyone said, hey, if you need to talk to me again, like, let me know. I do think there's such a community of help and healing and support out there underneath the facade of this weird social media smoke and mirrors. I'm a TikTok expert, I know everything. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I hope the book is. We obviously always say, like Brittany said, you're not alone. There's this full circle moment, but I also think that there's no wrong way to go through something, and there's no wrong way to start the healing process either.
It's beautiful. Well, you guys are putting some really good stuff out to the world, and I'm so excited for everyone to get their hands on your new book, September Letters. Thank you so much for being here, donating your time, telling your story. Where can people follow along? Where can they learn more? And where can they snag the book?
You can go to septemberletters.com to get your hands on the book, to learn more about us, to read a letter, to receive a letter, to request a letter. And there's hundreds and hundreds of letters on the site as well, but there's some great ones in the book, as long as with the experts. But yeah, you can also go to our Instagram and all that sort of stuff, as we're talking about social media. Yeah. But the good thing about social media for us is that it's a way to connect us. And so I stand by that part of it for sure. The book is available May 23rd everywhere. All the places that you get books. Well, even your independent bookstores.
I will put links to all of it in the show notes. We'll make sure that this gets out for Pub Week, and we can celebrate your accomplishment and the 2.5 years it took to compile everything and put all this goodness out into the world. It's always the best things that take the most time. So excited for you guys. I'm sorry that I couldn't be at the Barnes and Noble meet and greet. I'll definitely probably be in a hospital room
You will be
delivering
with the
a baby somewhere. but I'm really excited for you guys. Thanks so much for donating your time, and congratulations on your book.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
us.
Kelly, for having us. Yeah.